Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello, and welcome back to Everything Possible on Dark Souls 1, and today we're going to be heading down through Blighttown, heading down through the Great Hollow, and eventually ending up at Ash Lake. But before we do that, first things first, let's go ahead and take a look at the items that we're using as well as our stats. I decided to go with the Great Axe for this adventure, mostly because it has a vertical swing that's going to be very important in the Great Hollow for taking out all the crystal lizards we're going to find. You can see the equipment that I chose, mostly because I thought it kind of looked like an executioner. Covetous Gold Serpent Ring is going to be a must. Havel's Ring, so I can actually do some fast rolling with this equipment. And then just your standard fare, Estus Flask, Homeward Bone, and I did farm some Gold Pine Resin in Darkroot Garden, so we could actually use it on one of the enemies that we'll find in Ash Lake. Here's the stat page. Most importantly, you'll see that I'm now a member of the Forest Covenant again. I did go to Oswald to actually abandon my former covenant so I could rejoin the Forest Covenant, and you're going to see why once we're down in Blighttown. Also highlighted my curse resistance because that could be important in the Great Hollow, and my item discovery is always good to be maxed out at 410, especially when you're going hunting for crystal lizards. Next, we want to talk to Laurentius because in order to advance his questline as well as meet a new NPC, it's best to go ahead and upgrade your Pyromancy Flame to plus 10 before you go down back into Blighttown. You could ascend beyond this, but plus 10 is enough, so we'll go ahead and stop there.
Goodbye then.
Goodbye.
Come back if you find.
Oh, we actually will come back when we find something new. But thanks for asking. And here we have Sigmire, resting comfortably in Firelink Shrine after we yet again saved him from the perils that exist in Lordran. Once we saved him from the Silver Knights and talked to him, he went ahead and moved back here. But he's not going to stay for long. He is going to be moving down to Blighttown pretty soon. But because we just answered yes and we admitted that that was us who opened Sen's Fortress Gate, he's going to give to us the miracle, Emit Force. Now this miracle creates an orb of force that actually shoots out in front of the player. It does cause damage, and it causes stun or knockdown depending on the enemy's poise. Here he is telling us that he's going to be moving down soon because he lives for adventuring. He might live for it, but he's probably also going to die from it one day. But before we head down to Blighttown, let's go ahead and talk to the Firekeeper here one more time since we did pick up yet another Firekeeper soul. And now with plus 4, we are now well on our way to maxing out our Estus Flask. You can see I have lots of Purple Moss Clump saved up. You only need 3 for the next leg of Sigmire's journey, but since I had them on me, I figured why not just keep them. So you all should know the way to Blighttown by now, so I'm going to go ahead and jump forward to then. And as you can see, because we talked to Shiva while we were in the Forest Covenant previously, he is now down and he actually will act as a merchant for us. And he sells some very interesting and, in some cases, unique equipment that we're going to take a look at.
But I can only keep so many. And you know, you are a friend.
Cheap being a relative term. The Flamberge, the weapon of choice of the Serpent Mages in Sen's Fortress. The Demon Great Machete of the Capper Demon, the Shotel, which we've already picked up. Uchi Katana, the Washing Pole, which you can only get from Shiva. The Demon's Great Axe, the Taurus Demon's weapon of choice. The Claw, which is another unique weapon to Shiva. And the Demon Spear, which we can get from the Batwing Demons in Anor Londo. He also sells the Eastwood Grain Ring, which slows the durability of your weapon and armor by half. So if that is a problem that you're running into, you may want to pick up that ring. And before the next part, don't forget to grab the Look Skyward gesture from Shiva, because you're not going to be able to get it for much longer if you're following this guide exactly. And here is his transparent bodyguard who's wearing the Ring of Fog. But now, since we can see him, I think it's time we said goodbye. Attacking either the bodyguard or Shiva is enough to make them both go hostile for obvious reasons, with him being a bodyguard and all. But I'm going to go ahead and reset this encounter by healing up top here. And if you're lucky, and we will get lucky here soon, if you climb up here, the enemies can position themselves in such a way that you can actually get a drop attack, which will do massive damage to them. And unfortunately, his bodyguard decided to go ahead and get himself stuck under that wooden platform. But here is Shiva, now doing exactly what we wanted, which is staying on the ground and getting stuck. and allowing for a devastating plunge attack. And his bodyguard, none the wiser, will meet a similar fate. But from the bodyguard, we will pick up a humanity and more importantly the Dark Wood Grain Ring. Now this ring, affectionately known as the Ninja Flip ring, will give you a special rolling animation, also a Ninja Flip, if you're under 25% equipment burden. This also increases your iframes and gives you faster recovery from your rolls. Now at one point this used to be 50% equip burden, and let me tell you, you want to talk about OP, let's talk about the pre-nerf Dark Wood Grain ring. From Shiva's corpse we actually get a pair of humanity, we get his Murakumo, and we get the Iron Round Shield. Now you can possibly get the Murakumo from some of the giant skeletons around Lordran, but the Iron Round Shield is unique to him. Now this shield, it's a normal shield which means it can parry, but it also has heavy deflection like a Great Shield. What this means is that many enemies who attack your shield will actually bounce off of it and cause them to recoil, which means you can actually have time for a counter hit. And behind this pillar, this is the reason why we upgraded our Pyromancy Flame to +10. There are some other prerequisites that possibly could be met to cause this NPC appear, whose name is Quelana. However, upgrading to a +10 Pyromancy Flame is a guaranteed way.
Fascinating. I am Quelana of Izalith.
She even said Quelana, so I was right.
Of flesh. You have a gift. Are you too one who seeks my pyromancy, like Salomon?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I am. Like a salamander.
It should be expected. Very well.
Now she is going to sell a number of pyromancies, and if you want to get them all from her, you have to come back and speak to her after you've destroyed Quelaag and the Bed of Chaos. But what you want to do is you actually want to purchase one of her pyromancies that are unique to her if you want to continue with Laurentius' questline, or rather if you want to end Laurentius' questline. So many of these are unique to her, some of them are sold by both her and Laurentius, but we are going to choose Firestorm, which is one of the unique spells. And the next time we talk to Laurentius, he's going to notice that we've learned this, and he's going to inquire about it, and if we're honest, then he'll move from Firelink and we'll actually find him down here for one last confrontation.
Lest my
Skirting along this back wall, we are looking for a familiar figure, and considering I've already spoiled it by telling you that he was going to come down here, that's right, we are looking for the Onion Bro, who we can now see off in the distance. And he mentioned that he would have a hard time rolling because his head would be spinning when he was in Sen's Fortress. Can you imagine him trying to roll through the swamp in that gear? I just don't see it happening. But in typical Sigmire fashion, he is asleep, so talk to him once to wake him up. His armor is so rotund and bulbous that he can actually rest his arms on the armor and sleep comfortably somehow.
I just drifted away. You see, I'm actually in a bit of a fix.
You can also, if you look carefully, you can actually see his face through the slit in his helmet.
By my knighthood, I'm ashamed to ask.
At this point, he shouldn't be ashamed to ask for anything, considering we've helped him numerous times before.
Fantastic. Thank you.
But he asked for purple moss clumps. You give him 3.
Expresses his deepest gratitude. I shall not forget this. Please. Take
and for his thanks, he will give you
my appreciation.
His Pierce Shield. Which means he must have more than one on him at a time. But the Pierce Shield is a pretty interesting shield in that it has decent damage if you actually wield it in the right hand. In fact, if you upgrade this all the way up to plus 15, it has 205 attack rating, and it has a B scaling and dexterity. So if you're looking to do some damage with the shield, maybe you're looking for a good challenge, the Pierce Shield is a pretty fun shield to play with. I don't get it, personally. Maybe it's an inside joke.
Quicksand in there.
But after you've gotten the Pierce Shield, go ahead and exhaust his dialogue because we do want him to move from here. And we're not going to see him for quite a while. In fact, the next time we're going to see Sigmire is going to be in Lost Izalith. But we have several things to accomplish before we see that place. Heading up this large route, you saw this in the Blighttown episode. There were 2 illusory walls preventing us from going further, but we've already knocked them down. So now we're going to enter the Great Hollow. The Great Hollow refers to the fact that we are about to enter into an arch tree. An arch tree is a remnant of days gone by, a time when everlasting dragons ruled the sky and life outside of the dragons did not exist yet. But there's a lot of loot to be had in this place. However, there's also a lot of death to be had in this place if you're not careful. There are a lot of winding, narrow passageways, and your camera can play tricks on you, especially if you have auto wall recovery on. But we're going to split this up into two different paths. One is going to be taking on the crystal lizards, of which there are 10, and the other one will actually be getting the items. So from the bonfire, carefully walk off this path, and I'm going to make sure I have my covetous gold serpent ring equipped. And you want to follow this tree branch all the way up to the top where it stops. And then very carefully, and I do mean very carefully, walk off the edge to this platform below. Now in this cave are crystal lizards number 1 and 2. Here's the first one. Fortunately, I can actually get a second attack off. We'll get ourselves a pair of Twinkling Titanite and a Titanite chunk. And because the other one has already scurried off, we're going to go ahead and quit and reload, which in this case is going to be represented by a very quick transition. And there's number 2, chase him down. And this time we can get yet another pair of Twinkling Titanite and a Titanite slab. You can get slabs from these crystal lizards, which is why you do want to have the maximum item discovery that you can possibly get. So that takes care of the first two, so we're going to carefully hop down to this platform, and this is actually in the main branch. We're going to run all the way back up to the bonfire and start over exactly where we first hopped down, because the next 5 crystal lizards are all in one area that we can access from that same branch. Once again, carefully hop down. A good trick for the Great Hollow, not only having the auto wall recovery off in the options menu, is to point the camera down so you can see exactly where you're at. And you can see that small cave is where we're headed. So walk over to the left onto this branch, and be careful not to stay too close to the wall, because there is some strange physics that occurs and you can get stuck. And if you get stuck there, more often than not, you'll need to actually use a homeward bone to get out. So one crystal lizard would be right here at the entrance. The second crystal lizard would be right about here in this bend, and then the other 3 are all located on this platform. We're going to see all 5 using transitions. Number 3 gives us 2 Twinkling Titanite and 2 large Titanite shards. Number 4, 2 Twinkling Titanite and 2 green Titanite shards. Number 5, 2 Twinkling Titanite and 2 large Titanite shards. I ran all the way back up here because it just seems easier to reset from the top. Number 6. 2 Twinkling Titanite and a Titanite chunk. Unfortunately, this crystal lizard actually didn't make me quit and reload. Number 7. 2 Twinkling Titanite and a red Titanite chunk. Speaking of quitting and reloading, be prepared to do it quite a bit if you want to get all 10 crystal lizards. If I had to estimate, I would say that I probably had to quit and reload a total of about 40 times before I was able to kill every last one of them. But be patient, because there's a lot of really good loot to be had. The next one occurs right where these 2 branches meet. I had some fun with this basilisk trying to get at me, but instead just getting caught and doing his little jig. I thought it was cute. Number 8. 2 Twinkling Titanite and a green Titanite shard. And from here, in order to get to the last 2, I like to actually run through this cave that has the basilisks in it. This is the reason why you may want to actually up your curse resistance. These basilisks do have higher HP, And I could be wrong, but it seems that the curse actually builds up much faster with these. Again, I don't have actually solid proof to state that fact, but it definitely seems to be based on my experience. Carefully heading down this branch, again keeping the camera pointed down so you can kind of see exactly where you're at. And you can see where we're headed, right onto this platform. I actually overshoot just a little bit, because on this platform here is where the last two are. This route and platform has some very strange collisions, so you may need to roll up it instead of just walking. But we have number 9, 2 Twinkling Titanite, and 2 Green Titanite shards. Number 10, 2 more Twinkling Titanite, and 2 more Green Titanite shards. So that is all 10 crystal lizards. They really aren't too difficult to get to. You just have to be careful, plan your attack, and make sure that you quit and reload anytime one gets away. But now we've used a homeward bound to get to the top, because now it's time to get all of the items through here. And the first one is right in the center. We have this other exposed tree trunk, kind of within a tree trunkception. But if you roll directly towards it, you should land safely on the platform below and get the Chloranthy ring. The Chloranthy ring is a stamina regeneration increasing ring. It increases your stamina regen at about 20 per second, which is roughly 45% faster than your base rate, but it also stacks with the Grasscrest Shield, the Mask of the Child, Green Blossoms, and Power Within. You can have almost instantaneous stamina regeneration if you stack everything. This area should look familiar. We have our Basilisk Cave again. And we have some leapfrogging basilisks to deal with this time. But just outside, around the left-hand corner, get ourselves a large soul of a nameless soldier. And we're going to back up so we can see the next 2 shinies that we're going after. One to the left, one to the right. So we're actually going to do just a tiny bit of backtracking and head to the top of Basilisk Cave so we can go ahead and reset. And one of the nice things about the items in Great Hollow is that many of them actually follow 1 or 2 paths. So you can actually get most of the items without doing too much backtracking. I'm showing you here that trying to drop onto that branch where the first item is actually not a great idea. It can be done, but it's very tricky, and it is a lot safer to follow this method. Follow this wide branch around and just walk onto this platform safely. If you're uncomfortable doing that, you can roll for added distance. But up on this branch, we have item number 1, which is a red Titanite chunk. And then you can see that branch there. We're actually going to roll down onto that one. It's an easy roll, I promise. And this is actually the branch where item 2 is. So you can just walk up top and get your Titanite chunk. And from here, I actually went the wrong way, so you can go ahead and ignore this entire part. Because eventually I'm going to realize my mistake and head back up. Because from up here, we're going to roll back down onto the Basilisk platform. And we're going to take this lower branch. It's rather short, but we're actually going to use this to hop down onto the next level. Very easy jump to make, again, as long as your camera's pointed down. And from here, you can see a platform with a ladder. We're going to be rolling onto that platform, and if you're not looking for items, that is a very quick way down, because you will survive that fall, and then there's a ladder you can slide down, and that will bring you to about the halfway point. We, however, do want all the items, so instead of climbing down the ladder, we're going to run up these branches. This is the platform that had crystal lizards number 9 and 10 on it. And you can probably see the next shiny we're going for. Walking very slowly, carefully, and methodically. Look straight down, line up the middle, and carefully walk down. And you can pick up a white Titanite chunk. Hopping down onto one of the main branches, you can see the next item easily within reach. And we get a blue Titanite chunk. As I said, most of the items follow one or two paths, and you can see the last few have all been gotten without any sort of backtracking, and the next one is no exception. Now this one can be tricky to get. What I recommend is, instead of hugging the left-hand wall as I am, actually get away from it a little bit, aim straight at the shiny, and then just walk right towards it. Don't roll, just walk. And then you can get a red Titanite chunk. From here we're going to be dropping down. I was hoping to wait until one of the basilisks was actually under me so I could plunge on him, but no such luck. This guy actually gave me a bit run for my money. I had fun with him. I'm hoping he had a good time until right about now when he died of mysterious circumstances. You can see that ladder where you can climb down safely, but safe really isn't in the cards if you want all the items in Great Hollow. So instead, the place that we're looking for is a hole much like this one, but it's up against the base of the tree in the middle, right here. And if you peer down, you can see the shiny on the branch, and the absolute easiest way to get there is just to walk towards the corner and roll. You'll land right in the middle. And a blue Titanite chunk is waiting for you on that branch. And this time I am able to get the plunge onto one of these basilisks. A bit overkill, you might say, and I wouldn't disagree. Sometimes they have it coming. You can pick up Eyes of Death, so if you are farming for the Gravelord Covenant, you can do so here, but do you really want to be climbing up and down these branches all day? I would submit that you don't. Yet another Eye of Death. And on this corpse, we have another large soul of the Nameless Soldier, but we're not going to take that branch down. Instead, as you can see from this branch right here, there's one more shiny to get before we actually start descending into the mushroom area. And in order to get this, and this took me some time to figure out, the easiest way is stand on the corner of this clump right here and just walk straight forward. And it should deposit you right onto the middle of the branch where this item is located. Congratulations, because you're now the proud owner of a brand new white Titanite chunk. Then from here, things can get a little dicey, but just be very careful, walk slowly, and know exactly where you're trying to get. This next one, I actually rolled. You can walk, the branches will bounce you onto the branch below, but I felt a little more comfortable rolling. And from here, the next item is very easy to get, and somehow I allowed myself to get turned around, and I got the attention of a couple babby mushrooms, so I'm going to deal with them before we get this next item. These babby mushrooms, unlike the one in Darkroot Garden, they are aggressive right off the bat. They don't wait for you to hit them till they can call like a little loon and then go cry to mommy and daddy. Instead, they will come swinging, and they do pack a punch. Pun intended. Or unintended. Whichever's funnier. Go with that one. They also have some good health, considering taking 2 hits from a 2-handed Great Axe at plus 10. They have the health to back it up. That is not a fall I recommend. That was sheer luck. But I did get a Titanite chunk, so it all worked out in the end. But again, this item is very easy to get to. As long as you can see the shiny, you can get to it. So we're heading down to the bottom, and we're climbing down these bracket fungi, and I have to wonder. There's a family of mushrooms down here. There are adults, there are children mushrooms. And I'm also walking on a different species of mushrooms. Are these kinfolk? Are they evolved from these mushroom people? Are the mushroom people evolved from this bracket fungi? I don't really know. But maybe here's a little fun fact. I actually took a mycology course in college, which is the study of fungi. And yes, I do prefer fungi over fungi, even though both are technically correct. And that mycology course was one of the most interesting, fascinating, and enjoyable classes I took in my college career. But Blue, what do you use mycology for? Nothing, really. Or, I mean, I don't. Occasionally I go out and I pick wild mushrooms to eat, but Probably could have done that with a little pamphlet. But really, don't go foraging for wild mushrooms if you don't know what you're looking at. It can be very, very dangerous. I feel like I had to add that disclaimer, or one of you is going to get sick and maybe even die, and I'm going to be blamed because I made a YouTube video of Dark Souls, and someone died from a poisonous mushroom. You know what? Don't eat mushrooms. Any mushrooms at all. Just if you go to a restaurant and they say, oh, well, this dish has mushrooms, oh, stay away. Wow, I really got off target. Then again, I didn't have anything else to add about these mushroom people, other than the fact that their punches really hurt. Fortunately, 2 R1s from the Great Axe does stun them for me. And you guys are going to have to confirm, I've never once had a drop from these mushrooms. The mushrooms in the Darkroot Garden, I get the gold pine resin very, very commonly. In fact, the adults almost seem to have a 100% drop rate. But down here, it seems like they don't drop anything. So confirm or deny, let me know below. But here we are at long last in Ash Lake. In my opinion, one of the most deceptively beautiful areas in all of Dark Souls. It is also the only area in Dark Souls that I know of that has a score dependent on how high or how low you're looking. Alright, that's enough of that. But it is absolutely beautiful. It is breathtaking. And while we don't know too much definitive lore about Ash Lake, it is believed by many to be the oldest area in all of Lordran. You can see the giant trees, the arch trees in the background. We have the Hydra here, who is essentially a behemoth of days gone past. We have the skull of a giant, a creature that we actually do not see in the real game. And at the end of Ash Lake, we're going to meet one of, if not the very last, of the everlasting dragons. Ones who were betrayed by Seath, and the ones who were destroyed by Gwyn and his army, as well as the other beings who got a piece of the original soul. Now this Hydra, as you can see, and it should be abundantly clear, is a lot more free than the Hydra we fought in Darkroot Basin. And because he is so free, he actually has a skill that the other one did not possess, or at least he didn't have the ability to use. And I want to actually get this Hydra to show us that ability. So instead of engaging him right away, and I'm not going to pick up any items just yet because I want to focus on the Hydra, I'm going to run to the other side of this, well, I would call it a sandbank, although it seems to be clear that this is ash and not sand. And I want to keep his attention because I want to start pulling him down towards this other arch tree, but I don't want to be within aggro range because I don't want him to just shoot water projectiles at us. And you can see that he's disappeared. And if you've ever seen Free Willy, this scene might be reminiscent. That's right, this Hydra can fly. Or at the very least, fall with style. I know he's actually jumping and not falling, but anytime I can use a Buzz Lightyear quote in a video, I will. Chalk this up as number 1. But if you actually stay outside of his aggro range for too long but he can still see you, he will actually jump over this sandbank or this ash bank again and again so he can get nearer to you. Which is very, very cool dynamic, and I love the fact that they actually thought enough to put this in. Because if this didn't happen, you could theoretically just hide behind the bank of ash and you could run all the way to the end completely safe. But instead, the Hydra has this awesome ability to leap high out of the water, much like the great white sharks in Shark Week every year, and he can actually get as close to you as he wants. Now these enemies are known as Man-Eater Shells, and they have a very common drop of Twinkling Titanite, and they have a slightly less common drop of Purging Stones. In this case, we got one of each. Purging Stone is a consumable item that can actually cure you of curse, and we're going to be seeing many more of these man-eater shells when we get into the Duke's archives and we actually face off with Seath. And we'll be seeing many more of these man-eater shells once we get into the Crystal Caves and we finally square off with Seath the Scaleless. And because the Hydra is taking just so long to actually come back to this side where I prefer to fight him, I am going to run down here and pick up this shiny that is inexplicably extremely far away from the player. But if you're looking to join and upgrade the Path of the Dragon Covenant, you can get a free Dragon Scale here, and in fact you can actually get more than that, or we'll be looting momentarily. Our next step will actually be to get the Hydra's attention again and see if we can get him to hop back over here. I can't tell you exactly why I prefer to fight him on this side. In fact, I've never fought him on the other side. But I guess I'm just going to stick within my comfort zone. As soon as he dives down like that, that's when you know it's time to get out of his path, because as he's flying over, you'll notice he does rain down water projectiles as he goes. And he is actually responsible for damaging the clams or the man-eater shells as much as he did. Be wary of the edge, just like in Dark Root Basin, there is a steep drop off that will kill you. But this fight is essentially the same. If you're too far away, he will shoot water projectiles, and if you're close enough like I am, he will actually lunge all of his heads at you and give you an opportunity, hopefully, to actually get a couple of hits off. That was maybe not a great example, because he actually went past my Great Axe. But what I'm going to do is, because this fight does take a little bit longer, because he does have more HP than the Hydra from Dark Root Basin, I am going to go ahead and skip to the end so we can just see him dying. And this is also a good example of showing that you can kill him without destroying all of his heads if your damage is high enough. And you will get yourselves a pair of Dragon Scales. Just a few more pieces of loot to get before we actually get to the end of our journey. Inside this log, we already ran past it once, but now we'll actually stop and pick up the Dragon Scale. And try as you might, you won't be able to climb up this hill until a certain point. But once you have, run towards this arch tree, but we're actually going to stay somewhat to the left. Although first we're going to have a pit stop and get a good look at that giant skull that I referenced earlier. It's very interesting. It's humanoid in nature and in shape, but it seems to have tusks and horns. Nothing we know of in any of the Souls literature or lore suggests that that actually belongs to a creature that we know about. On this floating corpse, we get yet another Dragon Scale. So there are a number of guaranteed Dragon Scales that you can get, and you should be able to get enough in order to rank up at least once in the Path of the Dragon Covenant that we'll be entering into soon. And this arch tree does have a couple of different ways to get in, but if you want to get the one item that it contains, you're going to want to follow this advice and ignore that first entrance, and instead, take one that is accessible by climbing up this route. Be careful because it does begin to narrow, and you do have a basilisk at the end. Lucky for us, his breath was enough to cause him to fall backwards. I have no problem with it. But this is a somewhat hidden entrance. You can see a branch just below us, and you have to very, very carefully nudge yourself off of this branch in order to get it. It's going to be to the point where you're standing on absolutely nothing, but again, keep nudging the controller just barely so you can actually fall off and land on that branch below. And that's also you can pick up the miracle Great Magic Barrier. Great Magic Barrier belonged to Bishop Havel, so Havel the Rock, and when you use it, it counts as a self buff that lasts for 40 seconds that resists magic damage by about 90%. It is a huge magic damage resistance buff. Yet another mushroom to deal with. Not to mention a couple more basilisks. And even with my high curse resistance, you can see I actually get a little bit too close for comfort this time around. I was worried that for the first time in my Dark Souls 1 career, I can't say Dark Souls 2 anymore, I was almost cursed. That would have ruined my day. There is the entrance we saw from the outside, and just to show you where this branch leads, just outside, if you're not careful, leads to your imminent death. I'm not kidding. But to show you again where it leads, this time a little bit more carefully, and you want to stick towards the middle, actually a little bit towards the left on this branch. Because if you hug that inside corner, that's where that fall zone was. But this is just the branch that had the basilisk on it. See, here he is again. And I decided, hey, if I'm going to play the role of a lumberjack, I might as actually swing at a couple trees. But with him down, we can actually head down back to the Ash, make our way towards one more enemy, and then the very end of Ash Lake. One more man-eater shell to deal with. Not a problem. And the nice thing with these is that their poison is relatively low, and if you can stun them once and wait till they recover, you should be able to stun lock them indefinitely until you kill them. Get ourselves another purging stone, and if you take a look, the pearls, quote unquote, inside are actually human skulls, or at least what appear to be human skulls. That was a nice touch. This area is just so impressive in scale, and yes, I wish there was more down here, and I also wish you didn't have to go through the Great Hollow to get here, but this is also one of the reasons why I recommend coming down here after you've already obtained the Lord Vessel, because once we get to the end, you're not going to want to run back and then climb back up through the Great Hollow. Fortunately, there is a bonfire on the other end, and we can warp straight out of here. No harm, no foul. I just love how this area wraps up. You start to actually feel a little bit claustrophobic with all the huge towering arch trees, and then as you approach the end, something in the distance just doesn't look like its surroundings. And hiding amongst all of the largest tree roots, we have the last remaining everlasting dragon. The everlasting dragon is non-hostile. You cannot actually damage him, and he will not attack you. Instead, he is actually the leader of the Path of the Dragon's Covenant, and if you join, you will get the Dragon Head Stone and the Dragon Eye. The Dragon Head Stone, once you use it, will actually transform your head into that of a dragon, and when you equip it on your hotbar and use it while you have the head of a dragon, you will actually spew fire. That effect will last until you die. You cannot remove the Dragon Head. The Dragon Eye works just like it did in Dark Souls 2. It is a PvP covenant, and if you use the Dragon Eye, you will put your summon sign down in other players' worlds, inviting them to duel, and the winner will get a dragon scale. If you donate up to 30 dragon scales, you can actually get the Dragon Torso Stone, which will transform your entire body into a dragon, and you can actually get a free damage buff out of it. Remember how I said he can't be damaged? But he can be broken. By cutting off his tail very cruelly like we just did, you can pick up the Dragon Greatsword, which is the highest base damage of any weapon in the game. Keep in mind it doesn't actually have any scaling, and it does require a lot of strength to wield. You will need 34 strength to two-hand and 50 if you want to one-hand it. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for the Great Hollow and the absolutely and ever beautiful Ash Lake. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please leave me a comment below, and if I missed something, leave me that too. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.